Hey, it's me, Dave March, back again for the 20th episode of Land of Confusion show, the Ricochet show where members interview members for the other members. And here's my co-host, Don Tillman.
Hi, I'm Don. I'm in Palo Alto, the usual place. And look who we have here for our guest, our honored guest. Mm-hmm. It's Yeti Blue. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Yeah,
and you've got your the Ira Glass microphone there.
This is actually a Blue Yeti microphone.
Okay,
yeah,
that actually takes us to one of the
somebody had given this to me a long time ago now, but that's what it is. Yeah, I actually been using it a lot in the past few. I didn't use it for years because I was never on one of these stupid things. Not these stupid things. I mean the stupid podcast.
Oh, that's pretty stupid.
And but I started about 3 months ago doing a podcast with Ovik Roy on COVID, and so I use it twice a week now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually one of our members' questions from unlike normal shows where me and Don just kind of ask questions from, and when we're interviewing our guests, we actually have members' questions that were asked, and that was Aaron Millen wanted to know if you're still wanted to know if your audio setup had changed since you began running Ricochet podcast, and if you were still using Yeti mics, and I guess we know.
That's right.
Oh, good. Audio nerd questions. Okay.
I mean, my audio setup, I didn't really have an audio setup because I really wasn't. I mean, is he asking the way we record the podcasts? I mean, if that's
a great question right there.
It depends on the show. Recently, we've been using a site called Squadcast, which is sort of a web-based podcasting application, and the good thing about that is that it records everybody's track locally and then uploads it. But it only allows for 4 people simultaneously. So on the Ricochet podcast, we don't use that. We still use Skype on that, partly because excuse me, we often bring people in by phone on the Ricochet podcast, and that is the sort of the best one of these platforms that works with the regular phone system. We have people like Tom Soul and Victor and others who are not actually. Victor has gotten pretty sophisticated about this stuff, so that's not really true with him anymore. But
he's like the king of all media nowadays, right?
He does, and we do Zoom with him, we do Skype with him, we do Squadcast with him, so I can't really say that about him anymore. But sometimes we have guests who are on the move, and we can't have, although that happens a lot less frequently right now. But we're having H.R. McMaster on tomorrow, and I think he's going to be on the phone. So. Okay,
because I know he does Zoom with not Hoover. There's another podcast. Maybe it is.
Well, he does. I do the Goodfellas show.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's for Hoover. I produce that one too. And he does do Zoom with that. We could do the Ricochet podcast on Zoom. And it kind of works with the phone system too, in sort of a little sort of awkward way, but I don't know. We're creatures of habit to a certain degree.
Sure. I mean, you're used to the quirks of any given system.
No, I'm not used to the quirks. The quirks are constantly surprising me on Skype. I was about to say that I really hate Skype, but it's like, as I said, it sort of does stuff that other things don't do, but I don't know. Anyway, we've now gone into way too much detail that nobody cares about on this thing.
Oh, I'm sure most of our friends, I cared about it. I know Don does, and some of our other guys would love to hear this kind of stuff. We have a real interesting collection of people we get on, we've interviewed. Next one up is from Western Chauvinist, who we've previously done an episode with. She wants to know, now that the Daily Wire is leaving California, is Ricochet next? Or are the operations already so dispersed it's really just a matter of personal choice where to live and work from home?
It's absolutely a personal choice. We have employees all over the country. I have no plans to leave California. I don't know about you, Don, but
No plans yet.
yeah, um, I I can complain about it for 15 minutes every California can, but I still do. I love it here. I love the weather. Um, I'm up in Palo Alto, although I haven't been up there since the end of March, but I'm up there all the time in normal times. I don't want to commute there from much further away than I already am, which is I'm about 250 miles south of Palo Alto in a little town called Ojai, California. So
That's not Simi Valley, is it?
no, it's Ventura County.
Ventura.
It's about we're about 10 miles inland from Ventura, California,
Oh, okay.
and about 20 miles south of Santa Barbara, up in the mountains.
Oh, nice.
It's very nice. I recommend it to everybody. It's a resort town, so come visit us. Don't stay though.
She also asked, do you guys think, this is more for both of you, do you think California is salvageable, or is it Democrat latifundia now?
I think it is absolutely salvageable. I think we are Don may feel differently, but I think we are nearing a tipping point here. And I think that I think it's partly dependent on finding good candidates, of course. That's why we had about a month ago, we had the mayor of San Diego on the Ricochet podcast, because he seems to be the most viable Republican in the state right now. And he's going to run for governor, assuming he can, raise enough money to do it.
Oh, I missed this one. It sounds good.
It was about a month ago. His name is Kevin Walker. He's a California Republican. He's pro-choice. He's greener than most Republican politicians. But he's a fiscal conservative, and I care more about that than I do about the other stuff. Sorry, but I do. I think I don't know. I never know how to put this, and I had struggled with it when we had him on too. But he's the Republican he's a Republican who's the mayor of the largest city in the country. I don't know how to. I don't know how to describe.
It's the
He's
largest
Republican in the country. No, that makes him sound like Chris Christie.
Yep.
It is the largest city in the country
with a Republican
mayor.
With a Republican,
yeah. So he's eminently qualified, certainly more qualified than Gavin Newsom was.
Yeah.
Or Arnold Schwarzenegger. So we have to take our shots where we can get them. He's not Tom Cotton. No, he's not. But Tom Cotton wouldn't be elected dog catcher here. So.
Yeah, I remember.
And who are you voting for dog catcher?
You mean who am I voting for president? Is that what you're asking
dog
me?
Catcher. No.
We don't have a.
I don't see dog
catcher
on
here.
the ballots very often.
No. We don't have a dog
wonderful.
Catcher, as far as I know.
It's my appreciation of the phrase. I just think that's a great
All right,
phrase.
I should say city council. He wouldn't get elected city council.
I love that phrase. I want to run for dog catcher.
Well, it used to be
That would be great.
Back in the spoils system, you wanted to be the town garbage pickup guy. You had to get you or your party had to get elected. I think that was a much better system looking back on it now.
That's right.
The Synthonian asks, how did you first become involved with Ricochet?
So before I lived in Ojai, I lived in Venice, California, and Rob and I was in the entertainment business before I did this, and I knew Rob Long socially and also professionally. We worked together a couple of times on a few things, and we actually had a small little independent company that did apps. We did an app for the LA Times and sort of an Oscar app for the LA Times. And while we were doing that, at one point, he mentioned to me about that he was raising money for this thing, this social network, based around center-right politics. And I said, "Oh, you should do a podcast." This is 2010. Podcasting was in its infancy then.
Yeah.
But I knew this guy named Adam Curry. Does that name ring a bell to you?
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a knight of that.
Okay. So you're a Curry kook.
Yeah.
So
I haven't
Adam
listened to it in a while, but yeah.
Adam was one of the people who helped invent podcasting. He helped create the standard that allows you to attach a file to an RSS feed, which is the basis of podcasting. And he sort of pretentiously called himself the Podfather at the time. But anyway, I knew him also from show business. And so I said to Rob, "Oh, you got," and he told me about Peter Robinson, who I was aware of. I had seen Uncommon Knowledge a couple of times, and I think I'd seen him on Fox. So I knew that, and Rob had been doing Martini Shot in Los Angeles at that point, for like 10 years. So I knew Rob knew his way around it. Rob and Peter knew their way around microphones. And I had some other friends who had a tech site called GDGT at the time. Peter Rojas and, oh God, I can't remember Ryan Block. And they had come over from, they had started a new site because they had just left AOL, where they were doing tech writing as well. But before they launched their site, for like 7 or 8 months, they did a podcast to promote the site and to talk about what they were going to write about and just do general tech news. And I said to Rob, "Oh, you should do this. You should do a podcast. You guys will be great at it." And he's like, "Oh, how do I do that?" And I said, "I don't know, but I know someone who does," which was Adam. So I got in touch with Adam, who was also starting a podcasting company at that time, the name of which it's not in existence anymore, and I don't remember the name of it now. But he was living in London and commuting to San Francisco at the time.
That's a long commute.
That's a long commute. And he was doing a podcast called The Daily Source Code, which was one of the first podcasts. And I got in touch with him, and he sort of gave me some very basic pointers. And we did it. I remember we did it like on Rob and I had a little office in Venice on Abbot Kinney Boulevard. It was behind, we sublet a space from an architect. It's now a jewelry store, I think. And Rob and Peter got Mark Stein to be the third person on the podcast. And we did it. And it worked pretty well, actually. And we did it, and I remember that it was pouring rain that day, and the infrastructure in Venice when it rains is not particularly great. So I was really worried that the power would go out or something like that. It didn't. And we did it that way for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. And then Mark Stein, for reasons that I to this day don't understand, decided he didn't want to do it anymore. And I don't remember how long it took to get James to do it. I think we had James on as a guest at one point, and I knew James because he was on Hugh Hewitt's show all the time at that point. I knew him from his blog too. So very soon after Mark took flight, we added James, and it's been the same ever since.
Cool. Oh.
There you go.
And James has such amazing radio skills. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yes, he does have. He is that, and that's part of what the interest was on our part, because neither Peter nor Rob really wanted to do the sort of the nuts and bolts work of the show, which is introing guests and reading the spots and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. James loves that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. So, the only other person I know who does that really good is Jay Norlinger. He doesn't do as many podcasts as he used to, but like he can he does the bits and does all the nuts and bolts of his podcast very well.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I do Jay's show a fair amount.
Okay.
I've got him where, I mean, he actually does a lot of the recording himself now, but we put it together for him. So he was just here, actually. He was here in Ojai last week, interestingly enough.
Must be nice to be able to travel around like that in my country. You know, we have provinces that have shut down the borders to other provinces and won't let people in.
He lives in Canada.
He came to New York. He flew out here. He has a friend in Santa Barbara, and he had mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, oh, I have this friend in Santa Barbara. I'm like, oh, you should go out. You should go visit him, and then come down here. It's it's a 30-minute drive at the most, and that's exactly what he did. And it was great to see him. I hadn't seen him. The last time I was in New York was in February. That was the last time I saw him. So.
Okay. Well, if we got a few more minutes for a few more. We'll maybe get to our usual questions. Where were you born and what was it like growing up there?
I was born in New York City, but I grew up outside of Washington, D.C., in suburban Maryland. I went to high school in D.C. At a very liberal small private school named Georgetown Day. Most people know Sidwell Friends. That's the big rival to Sidwell Friends is Georgetown Day, and but like it was kind of a hippie school. Like you called your teachers by your first name, which at that point was like scandalous.
Right,
and,
right.
I went to high school with the Mondale kids, Elizabeth and William, and Jamie Raskin, who's now a congressman from my parents' district, was in my class also. He's very liberal. And he just laughs at me. Like, when I ran into him one time in DC about a year or 2 years ago, and we sort of caught up for a little while, and I told him what I was doing and where I was working at Ricochet at the Hoover Institution, and he just thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. So that's that. It was, it was a fine place to grow up. It was, your basic, suburb. I will say that when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s in DC, it was a very different place. I've said this to people before, Hoover, my other job at the Hoover Institution, they hold a winter meeting at the Willard Hotel. And I always marvel when I go there because when I was a kid, the Willard was like a burned out shell of a building. It was like Dresden, and that whole area was decrepit and dangerous. And now it is like Fifth Avenue. And I tell people that, especially people that are younger than me, which is almost everybody now, that story, and they can't believe it. No, you're exaggerating. I'm like, no, I'm not. You just nobody came down here. There was nothing here. Just burnt out buildings. But that's what it was. That's what it was like then.
What is it? The next question. So do you consider yourself a conservative, a libertarian, or a classical liberal, or how did that happen, and when did you realize you weren't like all the other kids?
I came to it. I would consider myself, it depends on I'm very issue centric when it comes to this stuff. I tend to, because I mean, partly given where I live and partly given where I grew up, I tend to be more socially liberal and fiscally conservative. I'm sort of I'm pro-life, but I should say this: I'm pro-choice, but I do think we should have a third trimester ban on abortion.
Yeah.
I am all in favor of smaller government. I was just had a long talk with somebody this morning. There was a piece in Politico yesterday that came out about how Dianne Feinstein, aged 87, may not have the mental acuity to participate in the House and Senate Judiciary Committee hearings, which are coming up, to confirm the Supreme Court justice. California is a state of 40 million people. She ran for re-election 2 years ago when she was a sprightly 85. 40 million people. She's the only person that can do this job. We actually have two really lame-ass senators right now. Neither one of them have actually, in case you haven't heard, we've had a few issues with fires in the last few months out here. And neither one of these ladies have bothered to make it to the state in their role as a senator. Kamala Harris has been here quite a bit, but only to raise money. She did an event with Gavin Newsom, but that was just like a photo op in front of a burned out tree. It's really quite something that the largest, most populous state in the country has two absent senators, basically.
Good point. It's a really good point. And it's on fire.
I find that to be, by the way, when Dianne Feinstein ran for re-election in 2 years ago, she was running against another Democrat. You couldn't even vote.
Yep.
So I did vote. I voted for her opponent.
Right.
Because just on the basis of we should not be electing 85-year-olds to anything. Probably not 79-year-olds either, by the way.
Yeah, and this is the jungle primary thing where, for those of you who don't know, this is the jungle primary thing where the top two vote getters run off regardless of party. And in California, the Republicans never tried to take advantage of that. I talked to one of the guys who's running.
I mean, they can't
time.
really take advantage of it. They don't have the voter
Well, they
base
can
here,
by not running so many people and split the smaller Republican vote. I think for senator there were a lot of Democrats running, and you would split it somewhat. But if more than one Republican is running, you're gonna have a chance.
There's a way to get around that. I've mentioned it to Don in a couple of cases.
I'm not sure.
Well, first, the state GOP just has to run a separate primary or a nomination process. Whoever gets their endorsement and their money, and then if anyone else wants to run, they don't get to carry the GOP banner. Anyone who wants this endorsement signs a pledge, and if they do try to run, you kick them out.
Right.
This is how it works in Canada. You would not have this kind of thing in Canada.
Don, you're probably right. I actually haven't looked into it that much, but. Even so, I mean, whoever the Republicans are going to put up is just going to get crushed.
Well, that's
at least in 16, they would have been. Maybe. I mean, look, she's going to be 92 when she has to run again.
Is she going to run again?
If she runs again when she's 92, I may move.
Okay.
That may do it for me.
Okay.
Wow, that would be amazing. But
I did a podcast with Byron York this morning, and I was talking to him about this. He was one of the people I actually talked to more than one person about this, and he pointed out to me that Strom Thurmond ran for re-election at 93, and he said that he remembers running into him, in the Senate office building, and it really was like a Weekend at Bernie's type situation where like his staff was basically like propping him up and answering questions for him and things like that.
Yeah, we have.
That's an indicator that something is really broken.
Yeah, one of our staff had Alzheimer's, and her assistant voted for her. It's a little different here, but still, they would like wheel out this 80-year-old woman in a wheelchair, and it was clearly she should be in a hospital. But they had to have her in this chamber to vote.
And then there's Joe Biden.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you my little quick. So we're doing an Uncommon Knowledge this weekend, a rare weekend Uncommon Knowledge with John Yoo and Richard Epstein.
Oh,
and Richard mentioned this on the most recent Law Talk podcast, which I recommend because they talk a lot about the Supreme Court nomination process, and they also reminisce about their personal experiences with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And Richard reminded me and everybody on the show that during the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearings, Biden held up Richard's book, which I'm now going to forget the name of, and, waved it around and said, why can't you be more like Epstein? or have you read this book? And what do you think of it? And so I looked at that clip. I pulled the clip, and it's in the show actually, but I also pulled it to see if we could use it on Uncommon Knowledge. I don't think we will. But what's kind of amazing is Joe Biden's 35, maybe it's late 30s. I'm not sure. You guys can do the math. But he was so sharp and so on the ball and so with it compared to now. It was kind of shocking. I mean, it shouldn't be shocking. He's 78 years old, but you don't see footage from 30 years ago very often of sitting politicians, unless they're dead or they just died. And I was taken aback. And I said to Peter, I said, I don't know if we can use this, but you should just look at it just to see what Joe Biden was versus what we see now. So,
yeah, I remember watching a while back, Thomas Sowell being interviewed for the Bork hearings, and Joe Biden's running in. Yeah, you're right. He's kind of much more with it.
Well, yeah, but it's just striking. Again, what the difference, So, anyway.
And one last question before we that we normally kind of.
I'll go until 50 past.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
If you got enough questions. Maybe you don't have enough questions. I don't know.
Well, no.
What is the thing you most like about Ricochet?
Oh.
The members, of course. That's easy. That's what I like most about it. It's not close. Everything else is quite a bit secondary to that.
Okay, good. Like that's usually the number one answer we get when we ask people, but some people have different answers. But.
I mean, look, it's fun. Peter and Rob and I are all friends. We actually like hanging out with each other. We don't do it as much as we used to because we're on. I mean, I see Peter when we used to be able to travel. I would see Peter all the time, at least twice a month. But I didn't see. I saw Rob far less than I used to. But we enjoy hanging out with each other when we do it, and that's fun and that's rare. So that's the other part I like about it, is to be able to have business partners that I actually enjoy being with and that I'm actually friends with. So, but in terms of pure Ricochet, it's the members, of course. I like hanging out with the members. I wish we did it more.
I mean, I remember my first meetup in Ohio, and I was just offhandedly, I went on the group and I said, hey, I'm going to be in Ohio. Does anyone want to have a coffee? And I can't remember who it was, but suddenly I'm in a room with 10 other Ricochet members. And it was the best time of I had gone there for a gaming convention, and that was the best part of the convention.
Well, I last saw you when you were up here for was it a Rob Long presentation? Yes, it was.
It was either Rob or James. James had one up there too. Although I don't think I went to James's actually. I think I had a conflict that day. I couldn't get up there.
So we have this group here, Silicon Valley, called used to be called the Conservative Forum of Silicon Valley. Now they've renamed it to the Liberty Forum.
It's the Amorettis. It was very involved in that. Right?
Yes, the
right.
Amorettis.
They're great. I love them.
And they're really involved in it. And Rob Long talked. It was like 2 years ago, I think. No, 1 year ago. A little over a year ago.
I was going to say it was about 18 months ago, 15 months ago, something like that.
Yeah, no, I can tell you, it was like May last year.
Oh,
and
okay, yeah. So 15 months. That's right.
Yeah, it was like May last year. And Peter was of course there because he lives over there. And
he had one of his kids there with him.
Yes, he had one of his kids there, and you were there, and it was great fun. It was and after the presentation, we got together at a local bar, and it was like a Ricochet meetup. Right. It was really nice. So there's this group that does that does these presentations, these talks. They bring in a guest speaker once a month. It's often some really good folks. I know James Lilacs has done 2 of them recently.
Right.
You had John Yu just a little while.
Oh yeah, John Yu, just last one. It was great.
John, you will be a guest on tomorrow's Ricochet podcast.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they taped it. This was done Zoom style, like this, Zoom style, and I posted to Ricochet a little while ago, last week or the week before, and it's really good. I recommend it. John is in great form.
John, I love John. He's now he's now officially a colleague of mine at Hoover. He and I joke all the time. We have a long text messaging going on. He will be a guest on tomorrow's Ricochet podcast. He's our senior Supreme Court Justice confirmation hearing correspondent and pundit. So he will be pressed into service tomorrow. He's also, I'm going to make some news here. He's also going to be a special guest on Goodfellas next week on the same topic. Oh, and as I said, we're doing an Uncommon Knowledge with him and Richard this Sunday. So I'll be spending a lot of time with John in the next few days.
That is great. Yeah. He's not on the judge list, the Trump justice list is. No.
I don't think so. I don't think he would want to do that. I mean, we actually have teased him about that publicly before. I think the last time he was on the podcast, we did that. I don't think he wants to move to DC. I don't want to answer for him, but you should have him on this show and ask him. But
hey, you know what? In some ways, I would love to have these guys on to talk to them. But on the other hand, like there's so many podcasts, like the Flagship, where you get to have everyone like that on. And this show seems, I like to have it be the show where we bring in people like Boss Mongo or E. Herring. Or
I think that's really good. I think and you know what? It's much needed. It's much needed because we can't really do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm grateful that you guys are sort of taking that ball and running with it.
Yeah, his idea, or whichever direction's coming out, his idea, and I just thought it was a grand thing to do.
I think it's a great idea, and as I said, I'm really happy you guys are doing it. As I said, because it's not something we can really do.
Yeah,
that's great. Let's see. So, how much of time?
About 5 minutes.
A fraction of time. I mean, do you work between Hoover and Ricochet and other stuff?
So I spent. I would say it's probably like. It actually shifts around depending on what's going on, but it's about 60-40 Ricochet right now, but that, it depends. There are days like if I have, I do a lot of podcasts for Hoover. I do The Libertarian. I do Victor's. I do Reasonable Disagreements with Adam White and Richard Epstein. I do, sometimes I help out with Bill Whalen's. I'm forgetting something. Oh, John Cochran's The Grumpy Economist. I do that one. So if I have like a day where I'm doing 2 or 3 of those podcasts and a Goodfellas or an Uncommon Knowledge, or I'm doing post work on one of those shows, it can be 60-40 the other way. It depends. The Ricochet stuff, the actual running of the website it doesn't change that much. There's not, we're not making radical changes to it. We're not, moving things around a lot. We're not redesigning it at the moment. So the actual day-to-day running of it, it's pretty set. You do this, you make sure you're making payroll and the mods are okay. And, Max isn't terrorizing, the never Trumpers, then, you're good. And the podcasts that I do for Ricochet, are on a pretty regular schedule. We do the Flagship on Fridays. I do, a couple, I usually, help out with a couple more here and there. We've added a couple of people to help us with the podcast. Max does some of them. EJ Hill does some of them now. So
good. Oh yeah, he's got the background.
He does London Calling primarily. And he also does Carol Roth.
That's a good one.
One last question before we let you get going. I would not be remiss in not asking. So, what's with Cosmo the cat? How long you've had them? And
Cosmo, we can't see him, but he's right in front of me here.
oh, okay.
I can't get him. Cosmo, we've had Cosmo he's an older guy. He's about 12, maybe 13, not sure exactly. But he is, he's got some health issues. So he moves quite slowly. He's also quite cranky a lot of times. And he has made my desk recently. This has just happened in the last few months. He has made my desk his rest home, which is fine most of the time when he's behaving like this, when he's lying down. But he often just likes to sit right in front of the screen because he gets interested in the mouse. And that is that's not good. That's not good. So, yeah, exactly. He gets a little, if I try to push him out of the way, he gets a little testy. So, but he has made appearances on podcasts. He has made appearances on Uncommon Knowledge too. Well, I've cut it out of Uncommon Knowledge, but he's been on the tape, and so.
Well, it's been great interviewing with you, and but I don't want to keep.
You know what? I'm happy to come back.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about something, and it's not your fault. It's totally my fault. So,
Yeah,
I'm happy to come back, and you can always, if anybody has questions or comments or complaints or compliments, even,
Well, that's not going to happen.
Exactly. Private message me or start a thread. I always figure like nobody wants to hear from me, so I try not to, I try not to impose too much into the conversations. I have gotten recently a little more into it on some of the podcast posts.
Oh, I noticed.
Just because I look, and this can be my big closing thought. The Republican Party, no political party, is a monolith, and we have, for better or for worse, we have the guy who's at the head of the party is controversial, and he's, by his own nature, divisive. I mean, you can love his policies and you can think he's the greatest president in history, but he can also be a jerk. I mean, he can. And that rubs some people the wrong way, including some people who are on podcasts on our network. And those people are Republicans. And if they're not on board with everything that's going on, instead of demanding total fealty like some dictator, maybe think about, why are we losing these people? What's not being done to cultivate those votes? Because the Republican Party is not in a position where it can really lose a lot of votes. It is the minority party in this country. And yes, the Electoral College helps at the presidential level, but that's the only place it helps at. And if the guy who's at the head of the party is purposely or just by the force of his personality driving people out of the party, I think that's a problem. And I don't think people, the rank and file ought to be encouraging that. And I see too much of that, not just on Ricochet. I see it, all over the place.
Yeah.
I get it, and I understand why the party has bifurcated into two distinct groups. It's been very tricky for this business to navigate that, and we have tried our best to just be a platform when it comes to that, and not take an editorial opinion, except for the punditry that you hear on the podcasts. And those people are those people. They're giving you. They're not saying something to drive you crazy. They're not saying something just to get your goat. They're saying what they honestly believe. And I think, it's really easy for me because I'm not a public figure the way they are. And I even, interact mostly on the site through a pseudonym. So I'm constantly impressed by these people who put their names out there, who put their thoughts out there, who put their positions out there. And many of them, especially now, and many people who are become very close friends of mine, who just get excoriated on a daily basis just for their political opinions. And I think that's bad. I think it's bad for the party. I think it's bad for the country. I think it's bad for the culture. It's just politics. And I think there's way too much investment in it. And I say this as a person who helps run a business that, wants people to invest in politics, because that's what we do. But I hope that if Donald Trump wins a second term, and I would prefer that he does, quite honestly, I hope that he can find a way to turn it down a little bit and to be everybody's president and to be more of a leader than an instigator, which is what I think he's been much of the time. And I'm sure I'm going to get creamed for saying that, but.
Well, I know. I just my only cream is that as much as you can hope it, I just don't think that's who he is.
I know.
He's just
I'm
a
sure
tornado.
you're right.
I grew up on Long Island, just a few miles from where Trump grew up. I know these people. I'm just very familiar with this.
Yeah. He is who he is. I get that.
Yeah.
But he's also, I mean, I would hope that he has some sense of the office and some sense of the history of it and the role that that he ran for. Nobody thrust this on him. He actively pursued it. So, I don't know.
I think he does do it. I guess, I think he does it sometimes, but he needs to, I agree, he should do it more. There's occasionally when he does it, and then
he should do it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, again, yes, I know Barack Obama didn't do it all the time either. I get it. I'm saying it aspirationally.
Yeah.
Not
Can we go from 20% of the time to 30% of the time? Is that just an aspirational goal?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we're divided on so many things. We don't need to be divided. We don't need help with that. And he's got the biggest microphone. He's got the biggest bully pulpit. Maybe use it for good instead of, I'm not going to say evil, but
just law versus chaos.
Well, just do it. Just do it in a positive way, not a negative way. How about that?
Okay. Cool.
And with that, Yeti's got a zip. So.
Yeah, you got a zip. I want to talk to Don a little bit about.
All right, you guys go. I thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for
I don't
coming
know
on.
that anybody gives a two hoots about what I have to say.
Well, we too gave 2 boots, and I think a few other people will too.
Okay, well, I appreciate the invitation and I appreciate the thought, and thanks for indulging me.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for coming.
All right, guys. Don, see you soon.
Yeah,
see ya.
Take care. So Don, that was a great interview. He like he said, he didn't think anyone would want to hear what he had to say, but I think we both like to hear what he had to say.
I think it went very well, and also maybe it's good having it just slightly shorter. Keep the energy, constant.
And the main reason why I wanted to get
we're still recording, dude.
Oh yeah, no, I am. We are still recording. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about.
Okay,
this is the 20th episode. We've got an actual milestone completed here. I didn't want to make episode 10 a big deal because everyone gets 10 episodes, but we got to 20 when at the beginning of the pandemic. I didn't exactly think too much of this, but I was hoping to kind of get some experience out of it. I think we've done pretty well. Like our views are people watch up. Some of our episodes are now, like I said, 120 views so far.
Really?
Boss Mongo is a very popular view. And it's just been kind of neat to do this show and hang out with you and meet all the people on Ricochet.
Yeah, I think I said before. I think it's a great idea of getting to talk to the people that you only see their avatars, and you read their writing and occasionally their photographs, but you don't get to meet them and hear them in their natural state. And I think it's great, and I think that was a really good idea.
Okay.
And I'm here because I just like talking to people, and
yeah,
and I need to get better on camera. So I have good skills.
But you've been very, very helpful when we've had someone like Skip Salon who has all this technical knowledge, and or Henry Rossett was another interview where we kind of surprised where we had this guy who had a very similar background to you, and you could get into those kind of things for that part of the audience.
Right. Yeah. So that's pretty good.
Well, let's
very good.
Look for 20 more of these, and we'll maybe do something then.
Excellent. So I got my fine Cartman shirt on here.
Perfect. Anyways, I think we should sign off now and
get
this thing in the can.
Take care, folks.
Okay, bye-bye.